According to Albert Breer, the 49ers are in the market to sign Jessie Bates, free safety, formerly with the Cincinnati Bengals. What do you think of this news?
It's huge news. It absolutely is huge news. And I think the thinking is that Steve Wilkes, likes to blitz a little bit more, but also likes to play a little bit more zone, and really, loves the single high, the cover three look with the single, which means you got to have a deep middle player. And who's that player going to be? Hufanga is going to be in the box doing what Hufanga does, but who's going to be that deep middle player? Is it going to be Jimmy Ward, or is it going to be the top safety in the market? And that's Jessie Bates. Now, Derwin James Derwin James and Minka Fitzpatrick are the highest paid safeties in pro football, Grant. And those guys make, I think, $18-19 million a year. They're speculating that it's going to take 14 or 15 annually to get Jessie Bates signed. But maybe the 49ers feel like, the one thing about Bates, I like Jimmy Ward more than Bates in that Jimmy Ward is probably going to be cheaper, and
Right.
Jimmy Ward's maybe a little tougher, but Bates is probably a little bit better coverage player, and he's younger. He's 25.
Yeah.
So do you go for the younger coverage player in Jessie Bates, who was a good player at Wake Forest, who's been a good player in the NFL? Or do at least throw that out there as a possibility? Maybe that helps your negotiations with getting Jimmy Ward back, because I think you could probably get Jimmy Ward for closer to 10.
Right, but as you pointed out, Jimmy Ward's older. I absolutely buy this. It doesn't really seem like the Niners. I mean, I don't know, but it doesn't really seem like the Niners and Jimmy Ward are working towards a reunion. Maybe I'm wrong. It seems like the Niners want to upgrade that spot. And if you're going to upgrade it, it's Jessie Bates. Jessie Bates is a hell of a player. And I kind of get the logic. Like, a lot of people want the Niners to re-sign Emmanuel Mosley. Emmanuel Mosley is a good cornerback, sometimes a very good cornerback, but he's coming off a torn ACL, and cornerbacks are really expensive. Jessie Bates is arguably a better player than Emmanuel Mosley, but will be cheaper because safeties get paid less than corners, which is kind of strange because they both can make a huge impact. And really, Jessie Bates is a playmaker. If you're going to take down the best quarterbacks in the league, guys like Patrick Mahomes, you might need a playmaker at the back end of your defense. The Bengals have had more success against the Chiefs than anyone. They've had this guy. I could see it. I mean, I actually think it would be a pretty good signing, Jessie Bates.
I think it would almost be, if someone's asked me, like, what would Bates be? I think he would be a combination of Gibson and Ward. I mean, Gibson is a highly productive interceptor who, gets picks. Bates had 4 interceptions this last year, where Ward is more of a coverage player, a little bit more physical, but Bates gives you that better than Gibson. So, like, in some ways you get the physicality of Jimmy Ward, but then you have the productive ball interceptor of Tayshaun Gibson, and you're getting it in a 25-year-old as opposed to a 30-year-old. Both those guys are a little long in the tooth. I think if you have Bates, Grant, I think you can play man or zone. If you have Gibson, I think you're really going to have to play zone. If you have Ward, you can play man or zone, but he doesn't give you that same production as far as intercepting the football. So, there's a little bit. I mean, you're paying a premium price, but you're also getting a player who was among the league leaders in interceptions. He had 7 pass breakups, and he's far younger. You got a player that you can, 5 years in NFL terms is a lot of years. It's a big difference.
And the Niners invest a lot in defense in an offensive league, but this is the kind of defensive player I think it's smart to invest in. He's not playing man-to-man coverage. They can't call him for ticky-tack pass interference penalties. He's not a big hitter. He's not making his money based on annihilating people. He is a playmaker at the back end of your defense. Those are valuable. Those are rare. The Niners have Talanoa Hufanga, but he's more of a playmaker near the line of scrimmage. He's not really that back-end ball hawk. If you can get one of those guys, they're actually cheaper than corners, and sometimes they're more valuable. So I'm cool with them signing Jessie Bates. I think it'd be a better value than signing Emmanuel Mosley.
The issue is missed tackles. Bates does miss some tackles, but I think the real impetus for this is that Wilkes' defense puts a lot on the table for the free safety in that deep middle. I mean, you're asking one player to cover a ton of grass, and Bates has proven he can do it. I mean, he's gotten better every year for the most part, as for how, as far as how he's graded out. But he's also played. He's been, he hasn't gotten hurt a lot. He's played a lot of football. So, in a lot of ways, you got Gibson, who's maybe a little bit of a liability in man coverage. You got Jimmy, who doesn't really want to play. He wants to play free safety, but is probably best as a slot corner. And I think Jimmy is more of a corner than a safety. I think his angles are just okay, but Jimmy is a culture player, and he definitely is like one of those guys that the other guys in the room look up to as far as a hitter, a leader. You know what I mean? So they're losing a lot there.
But true. But again, and that's all the more reason I think they're in the market for Jessie Bates. The Niners are committed to having the best defense in the league. They want to have the best defense, which is ironic because they have an offensive coach. But they build to their defense. And if they're going to let Tashawn Gibson and Jimmy Ward go, those are two good players. They're not just going to replace them with rookies that they take with pick 174. Like these are the 49ers. This is a win now team. They're going to go get upgrades, especially on defense. And so I think Jessie Bates is that guy. If they don't get Jessie Bates, then they're going to call up Jimmy Ward. They're going to call up Tashawn Gibson. They're not going to take a step back on defense. They don't want to.
Yeah, no. I mean, they want to. I mean, and the other thing is that Wilkes might have come in and said, "Hey, you know what? I need a great free safety." And then you're looking at the Bengals. They have 34 million in cap room. A lot of people would ask the question, well, if Bates is such a player, why don't the Bengals want to retain him? It's just that they have an awful lot of talent that's starting to hit the free agent market.
Right.
And they've got some great players that have to be paid.
Yeah, they're going to have to pay T. Higgins and Joe Burrow and all their guys on offense.
Jamar. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, this makes sense. The other thing is, if
what
you're going to replace Jimmy
be.
Ward, you can't replace him with just an okay player.
That's what I'm saying.
You got to replace him with somebody who's, like, by all accounts, at least the equivalent or an upgrade. And younger players, it's a little bit. I mean, I think there's some good safeties in this draft. Don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit of a crapshoot. I mean, that's a very difficult spot to play.
It's going to be tough to find a safety in this draft who's like Jessie Bates, runs a 4.5, runs a 6.73 cone, runs a 4.2 20-yard shuttle, has a 35-inch vert. I mean, this guy is a premium athlete who is also a playmaker in the NFL. I mean, good. I mean, you know what this guy is. Now, maybe you say, you know what, the Niners have spent enough money on their defense. They've extended so many. You're not even allowed to play defense in the NFL anymore. I get that. I understand that. I mean, if it's between spending $15 million a year on this safety or $15 million a year on a right tackle, you could sway me to say it'd be more prudent to spend that money on offense, on a right tackle, because look, you're not allowed to play defense in the NFL. They will flag you. I don't know. What do you think? Better to spend this money on offense?
I just think that you need athletes on defense, and then you can't fake it. You know what I mean? You can't fake athletes. So I would rather, just look at the Niner roster, Grant. Look how many guys are on the Niner roster who are significant players who were not day one or day two picks. Juwan Jennings, Colton McKivitz, Spencer Burford, George Kittle, Brock Purdy, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason. Charlie Warner. They've got a bunch of guys. I'd rather put the money on defense and find guys on the offense that fit my scheme than try to, spend a bunch of money on offense and try to, make it all happen on defense. I don't think you can fake the defense. I think you need the athletes.
All right, let me ask you this before we move on. Instead of splurging for Jessie Bates, because you splurged at middle linebacker and D tackle, and you're about to splurge on D end, if you want to draft a guy, what do you think about trading up for Penn State safety Jair Brown? Are you familiar with his game? What do you think? Could he be a plug and play player?
I love him. I think he's a tremendous player. He was on the Bruce Feldman freaks list earlier this year, which is he comes up with the workout freaks. He's an incredible workout warrior, But then, you're talking about a guy who power cleans a ton, and he just got he's very, very strong, very, very explosive athlete. The great part about him too is he's a player. He was the MVP of the Rose Bowl. So I don't know if anybody watched Utah and Penn State in the Rose Bowl this year, but Jair Brown was the MVP of that game. He's really solidly put together, about 5'11", 205. He's yoked up, but he plays fast. He plays physical. Yeah,
Is
I
he
love
fluid?
him.
Is he fluid in the open field?
Yes. Yeah, he's a New Jersey kid who's really tough, really confident, really well
Kind of
coached.
sounds like Talanoa.
Yeah.
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 Well, there's a guy right there. If they don't want to spend 5 years, whatever, 8, whatever it's going to cost to bring in Jessie Bates, here's a guy in the draft right here. It's nice to have options. What's his name?
Jair Brown. Jair Brown.
Jair
And the guy
Brown.
had 15 career takeaways with the Nittany
There you
Lions.
go.
He had 9 picks, 3 fumble
There you go.
recoveries, 3 forced fumbles. He had a 87-yard pick 6 against Maryland. He had 2 interceptions against Arkansas in the Outback Bowl in 2021. Then he was the MVP of the Rose Bowl this year. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of his. I love him. I mean, he might be the best. You might be able to get him with, he's probably going to go early third round, maybe late second. So you might have to trade up for him, but he'll be in the ballpark of where they're picking.
Yeah, and it seems to me like you got a big hole at free safety. You got a big hole at right tackle. If you sign Jessie Bates, then you're not signing a right tackle. You got to draft one. And man, good offensive tackles are first round picks, right or left. So I don't know if the Niners can even get one in the draft, but Jair Brown, it seems like they might be able to finagle their way, if they're good at finagling, to get him. So it seems like maybe that's the move instead of spending on Jessie Bates. I don't know.
I mean, you need an offensive tackle, but if I were them, I'd probably try to hit the safety spot twice, hit it in free agency, and then hit it again in the draft. You got enough guys.
You would say don't hit it and quit it.
Don't hit it and quit it.
Don't hit it and quit
keep
it.
hitting it.
Keep hitting it again.